Recently, we got the final update for Jailbreak 2024, the winter update. But how does it compare against the winter updates we've gotten in the past? I'm going to answer that question in this video by ranking them from worst to best. I'm going to rank the updates based on a mixture of how much I enjoyed the update, how good were the additions at launch, and how impactful have the updates been for the game. So remember, this is a subjective opinion, and you're totally free to disagree with me. Just make sure to do so respectfully in the comments. If you enjoy, like and subscribe, and let's get started. Easily the worst winter update is the most recent one, 2024. This year, the devs have basically been scaling back with the updates and gradually retiring the game. So it makes sense why this update was pretty small and didn't add much. I don't think it's a bad update, I've enjoyed it, but it's easily the worst out of every single winter update just because it's added the least. I do really enjoy the tanker truck. It's been hilarious to troll with it. I think the season that came with this update is really good, and I don't know how good the new supercar is since the ice hasn't melted yet, but it's probably going to be really good. And I also do really appreciate a lot of the bugs that the devs fixed with this update. However, with all that being said, this update still did not have much of an impact, and that's what really holds it back for me. I really wish the devs did another thing for this update. I would have really liked if they revamped one of the robberies. I get we probably aren't going to get any new ones, so I wasn't really expecting a new robbery, but it would have been nice if they went back and refreshed one of the past ones that have been the same for a few years. In particular, I've really wanted a tomb revamp for quite some time with some additional layouts, and I think this update would have been a good opportunity to do that. Or maybe a revamp to the plane, which has been in the game for 5 years now. In my opinion, it could have at least done with a new model. So yeah, overall, on its own merits, it's a fine update considering the standards of Jailbreak now, but it's easily the worst compared to the rest. Then we have 2017. I know a lot of you guys love this update and it's blasphemy to rank it this low, but I had a lot of issues with it at launch. This update added the train, which is a big deal as it was the first moving robbery in the game, and it was something that honestly wasn't really seen before on Roblox. But unfortunately, the train was pretty much unusable for months. It was actually ridiculous how hard it was to rob it. I just can't get over how crazy it is that your big addition to the game in an update does not work properly. I get it's ambitious and I'm glad it eventually was fixed, but in my opinion, it's a big deal that this train did not work properly at launch. However, once it was fixed, it turned out to be a pretty good robbery, so this update overall did have a positive impact. The rest of the update was fine. It added the Volt bike, which at first was really good, but then became insanely overpowered and made the game really annoying for a couple of years. And it also added the McLaren and the ATV. The McLaren is alright, but for a while it just sucked, and the ATV is one of the worst vehicles in the game. Overall, the best thing about this update was the train, but it didn't work properly for quite some time, so that's why I think this is one of the worst winter updates, because every other winter update had their stuff working properly at launch. Then we have 2022. This update added Jailbreak's first boss battle, the mansion robbery, to the game, and I really like it. I think it's a unique robbery compared to the rest, and I still really enjoy doing it, although the boss fight obviously is not the greatest thing ever. It also gives a very good amount of money. There was a lot of anticipation over this, and also a lot of worry that it wouldn't work properly at launch, but unlike the train, I had no issues with the mansion at launch, and it's worked pretty well for me. This update also added the crown vehicle, which is pretty good, but honestly rather forgettable, and I have not really used it. It also gave us Season 13, which is one of my least favorite seasons. It's just pretty meh, and a lot of the prizes are rather disappointing. So overall, with this update, the mansion robbery is really good, and I quite enjoy it, but the rest of the update is not that great. Up next, we have 2021. My favorite part about this update was the revamped jewelry store. Not only did it look a lot better, but it was even more fun to do. I still think it would be cool if the devs could come back every few months and add a new jewelry floor or something like that, but I still do like this robbery and I think it's held up pretty well. The main thing holding this update back down the list is the fact that there is no new robbery, but the jewelry store revamp does do a lot to make up for it. Aside from that, this update also added the speedometers, which are a really cool feature. They make driving way more enjoyable since you can actually see how fast you're going, and you can track how much you've been using several vehicles. We also got the tank in this update, which was a long requested vehicle. It was super entertaining for trolling, and I can't tell you how much I spent just destroying poor criminals inside the museum. And finally, we also got Season 7, which is an alright season, but I do like the Icebreaker Grand Prize. Overall, a really good update in my opinion. Following that, we have 2020. This update was actually really impactful because it brought back seasons after they had been retired for about a year. They were super flawed at the start, and they were still really flawed for over a year, but I still really appreciated having them back as they give me a lot of drive and motivation to play the game. Without the return of seasons, if the devs didn't add stuff for me to get, I probably would not be playing the game right now. So I have to rank this update high just because of that. As for the rest of the update, it was fine. The bank truck is a pretty good robbery. I love the concept of it. It's just not very good in execution because barely anybody starts it now. I have to ask people to start it. That's how bad it is. I think it needs a little bit of a reworking for sure. At this point, just make it require only one cop to start it. This update also gave us the DeLorean, which was a long requested car by Happy Hongo and some other members of the community, but honestly, I don't like it very much. The water gimmick is pretty cool, but I wish this vehicle would actually hover. It feels kind of lazy to just have it drive over the water. Stats wise, it wasn't very good for a while. Now it's pretty good because of the overdrive feature, and looks wise, it is very dated, and I think it could use a revamp. This update also gives the C4, which, like the other explosive items of past updates, was super fun to troll with. I had untold amounts of fun trolling criminals and cops alike with this C4. Now it's been nerfed a lot, but I still think it's a rather useful item in combat. Overall, the rest of this update was okay, but the re-addition of seasons was so significant that I have to rank this update high. Kicking off the top 3, we have 2023. On its own merits, this is one of the best and most well-rounded winter updates for sure. It gave us a great season. I really like season 19, and I was happy to get a proper snow vehicle as the grand prize. It also gave us the oil rig, which is a great robbery in my opinion. I do wish it gave more money, but I still think it's very good, and I'm honestly a little disappointed that a lot of people aren't robbing it as much. With this update, we also got the Carbonara, which is a great limited vehicle in my opinion. It's not one of my favorites, but I still quite like it. I think it looks great and it has really good stats. And another great thing this update did was it made boats actually relevant and useful, since you need them to go to the oil rig and to escape. There was finally a purpose to purchase them. And with the revamp of the Tron, this update also added an Easter egg of me. Overall, I thought this was a great update, but the reason I'm not putting it in number 1 is because I think the other two have a better impact on the game than this one. The penultimate update on this list will be 2019. To appreciate how good of an update this was, in my opinion, you have to recognize how dire the state of the game was before this. We had just gotten the worst period in the game's history, several of the worst updates in the game's history. The most recent update was Season 4, which I believe is the worst update in the game's history. Things were not looking good. However, the devs made an epic comeback with this update by adding a lot of really cool stuff. First up, they added the plane robbery, which is not a very exciting robbery, but I still think it's very good. The best thing about it is how it gives 4,000 J-Bucks to everybody, not just duffel bag owners. This makes it really good for people who don't own the duffel bag, and it makes it a very worthwhile robbery for them. This update also introduced the Tesla Roadster, which is one of the best vehicles in the game. The acceleration is great. We also got skydiving. Yes, skydiving is not flawless, it's often very buggy, and it would be great if those bugs were addressed somehow, though I know it's very difficult since it has to do with the game's anti-cheat, but still, buggy skydiving is better than no skydiving. Back in the day, you'd have to parachute down and that would take forever, but now you can skydive back down quicker. Overall, a wonderful winter update with a great comeback, but it hasn't had as big of an impact on the game as the number 1 spot, in my opinion, which is the 2018 winter update. This update introduced seasons to the game, which has been one of the most impactful decisions for Jailbreak in its entire history. And I think it's done a lot to preserve the longevity of the game. I was so excited for seasons, and they kicked it off with a bang with OG Season 1, rewarding the Batmobile and the Torpedo, which I think are 2 top-tier vehicles. This update also added some other stuff like the secret bases underneath the volcano and near the museum, airdrops, and codes. And while I thought all those features were pretty good, nothing could compare with how good Seasons were. Out of all these winter updates, this is the one I most appreciate. It was also really enjoyable too. This is the winter update that I've unequivocally had the most fun playing. On its own merits, is it the best? I would say no. I think 2019 and 2023 have better additions, but just because of seasons, I think this one has a better impact. And I think the seasons in this were better executed than in 2020, which is why I'm ranking this one above 2020. And overall, that is why I believe 2018 is the best winter update. And that's going to wrap up my ranking of all the winter updates. What do you think? Which winter updates have you enjoyed the most? What's your ranking of them? Make sure to let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments. If you enjoyed, please make sure to like and subscribe. Use code YouTubeNewFreak at any Jailbreak ATM to get my tire. Join my Discord server if you're over 13. Join my Roblox group. And I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.